on paper, the Skull Sorcerer may not come across as one of Ninjago's most notable villains. He's come from a fairly popular season, one of my personal favourites, Master of the Mountain, but when you look at him inherently, you may not think too much in comparison to something of the likes of the Overlord or Garmadon. But I think that's actually a mistake that a lot of people are currently making, because when you take a look at the Skull Sorcerer and you take a look at his intentions, his ambitions, his actions, and his feelings towards those actions, you realize that inherently he is potentially one of the most twisted and evil villains in the entirety of that show, and it's not even close. So what I want to do today is actually go through the things that the Skull Sorcerer has actually done when it does come to his time within the show. Talk about the actions he's committed, and actually just really diagnose how genuinely evil this man actually is. Because when you truly look at it, he is pure evil, and he doesn't care about the fact that he is that. So let me not waste any more of your time, and let's talk about Ninjago's most evil villain. Now, if you don't remember who King Vangelis or the Skull Sorcerer is, a quick crash course. He is the former king of Shintaro and the father of Vanya, and he was responsible for the enslavement of the Geckles and the Munts. He was responsible for being the main vendor for Harumi in terms of Vengestone, and he was also responsible for attempting to banish the ninja to where they couldn't be found. He had one side of him, which was by all accounts a benevolent king that people love and respected, but he had the other side to him, which was a ruthless dictator. He had very two polar opposites, and he did a good job at hiding the two until the ninja actually did arrive. But that's the thing, that kind of expert manipulation of your people doesn't come free, and it goes into what his personality truly is. But I don't need to tell you verbatim what his personality is, because as soon as I describe to you the things he's actually done that goes on to prove why he's so twisted and evil, you will know exactly what his personality is. The thing I have mentioned so far, the enslavement of the Geckles and the Munts, two entire races of individuals that he had completely locked down in shackles for his own personal benefit. Now, ultimately speaking, the Vengestone Mayan was confirmed to be paying for the city, but still regardless, Shintaro was completely fine before they were actually doing that, and it just goes to show that Vangelis just simply wanted more money. But enslavement just quite simply wasn't enough. Whilst he was enslaving these two races, he was also feeding them with false information that made them hate each other so he could continue to control them as he so wished and desired. He was more than willing to have these groups and races of people go against each other, hurt each other, harm each other, lose each other's lives purely for his own malicious gain. He has no care whatsoever for those people because he seemed to have it as it benefited himself. But what makes it genuinely crazier is that is, in my opinion, not even the worst thing that he has done across his time in the show. Now, there's not a lot that's worse than slavery, but when I note about the fact that he was more than willing to permanently get rid of his own daughter because she knew too much, you realize that there is a whole nother side to him. The thing is that when he enslaved these two races of people, he has no connection to them. He shouldn't be doing it, I have to add. But when you think about the fact his daughter, his own blood, his only family, he was more than willing to get rid of because he simply saw her as in the way of her plans, you realize that he truly doesn't have any sort of emotion for anything and everything around him, which just further goes in contrast of this benevolent king persona that Vangelis actually has. The fact is that he tries to act like he loves all when he literally sent his daughter to death. It wasn't even the only people that he did this to. The Uplee or the Downlee actually were tasked on a mission to go and find the skull of Hazardua for him, and once they found it, he got rid of them too because they knew too much. They weren't even from Shintaro, they would have just simply have left. But no, he couldn't risk it because he truly did not care about anyone and everyone. And then much later on, we see him actually do it to Cole and Wu and the rest of the ninja in a different sense. The people who he invited to the city, as soon as they figured out what he didn't want them to know, he was more than willing to end them as well. It goes to show that he truly doesn't care beyond his own personal means. He acts like he cares about his city and he's doing it for the good of Shintaro, but in reality, he is just quite simply not. But that's the thing, you think about Shintaro and you realize that the money that he was actually getting through this slavery venge stone operation, he was putting it into his city, fair enough. But the thing is that he knew full well what that venge stone was actually going towards. He was selling to Harumi, someone who he did have knowledge on, and it wouldn't come as a shock that she was vaguely alluding to what was actually happening. He was knowingly, regardless of his knowledge, contributing to something that would end Ninjago as he knew it. But again, he simply did not care because it wasn't the concern of Shintaro in his mind, or I guess more specifically, he knew it wasn't going to be a problem for him personally. So what we have here is an individual that enslaved two entire races of people, pitted them against each other, got rid of his own daughter, the heroes of the land, and knowingly supplied one of Ninjago's greatest villains with the means to destroy the entirety of the land as they know it. Now, Ninjago villains are not innocent by any account, but the thing is that when you take a look at these actions specifically, you realize that this is not someone with power, this is not someone with the essence of destruction, the power to actually tear the realms in half. This is just a man that is just quite simply committing atrocities because he so deems fit. And honestly, that is not something that should be looked idly by. The thing is that when you look at Garmadon and the Overlord and all of these other villains, they all have these weird motivations and all of these justifications for what they're doing. He simply was doing it because he wanted money and because it fueled his own ego. Which is genuinely one of the worst things that you could actually attribute to someone. They're not doing it for a grand purpose. They're doing it so they can sit on their ivory throne and do nothing. That is genuinely, in my opinion, one of the most evil and corrupt things that has ever actually come out of Ninjago. But what I think actually makes this entire situation worse is that he looks at these actions and he doesn't actually feel bad about the things that he does. The thing is that he's committing these horrible atrocities and he truly doesn't think he's at any form of fault. And that comes through when he's defeated and when we see him in Crystallized. After his defeat and he's disarmed of the skull of Hazard-Dûr, you see him actually immediately surrender and talk about how he's the king and to get their hands off of him. They have no power over him. He's the rightful ruler of Shintaro. He was doing it for her, his daughter, and all of the people around him. The people that he banished. He was not doing it for himself. He's a liar for one, but the thing is that he truly doesn't see an issue with it. He sees slavery as a means to an end of other people, quote unquote, when in reality he is just simply on about himself. He sees all of these horrible atrocities that he has been committing and the things that will happen because of his actions, and he genuinely sees it as net positive. And whether that is just for himself or for Shintaro is one thing, but regardless, the fact he doesn't see a problem with it is actually kind of scary. And like I said, this only extends through into Crystallized. We see a monologue between Vangelis and Cole, where Vangelis essentially accuses Cole of being the villain. And that is actually genuinely beyond me. In that interaction, we see how he talks to Cole about how he lost his kingdom because of Cole, how Cole's actions led to him not being treated like a king, how wrong Cole was, and how he deserves revenge on Cole for the things that he has done to him. Now, that's the thing. If you're evil and you are pure evil, that's one thing. But the thing that makes him worse is the fact that he doesn't actually own up to his own actions. And he genuinely doesn't see a problem with what he was doing even over a year after the events of what he was doing. He accuses Cole of being the villain in the story because he stopped him from owning slaves. That is literally what is going on in this moment. You realize that the Skull Sorcerer truly doesn't comprehend the fact that he is a villain. He genuinely sees himself as a hero, which makes him by definition worse. The fact that he sees slavery, the loss of his daughter, the loss of his people, and fueling the biggest conquest of Ninjago ever as not being the villain truly does speak to the levels that he is willing to go to for his own personal gain or his own ego. It goes to show that this is an individual that is truly corrupt at a base level. Every single fiber of his body is pure evil, and he truly does believe that he is not. And again, if you stand by it like some Ninjago villains do, that's one thing. Not standing by it and blaming the ninja for stopping you is a whole other. And that is why, in my opinion, the Skull Sorcerer is without a doubt one of, if not the most evil and twisted villains that we have ever seen when it does come to Ninjago. There are some very evil people, don't get me wrong, like I've mentioned Garmadon and the Overlord. But the thing is that this is an individual that was started from nothing and became evil and truly doesn't comprehend the morals of his actions. At least the Overlord owns up to it. At least Garmadon owned up to it. But Vangelis truly doesn't. Which, like I said, almost kind of makes him worse. But on an overall, that is actually kind of why I really like Vangelis and why I think he's a fantastic villain. Being unapologetic in his actions and truly standing by the things that he does truly cement himself as a villain in my eyes. Does truly go to show that you can have these unapologetic bad people that just won't simply stand in the way of anything to achieve their own personal goals, no matter what they are. But this is actually where I want to pass it off to you guys. Do you believe that Vangelis is one of the most corrupt Ninjago villains we've seen? Do you like him as a villain? Do you dislike him as a villain? I would love to know what you think, because I truly am captivated by this villain, and I just wanted to go in to show why he is that for me, because he really does deserve it. The man's a psychopath. But beyond all of that, thank you very much for watching the video, and I do hope you enjoyed. And if you did, please consider subscribing. I'd love discussing Ninjago with more people. And if you do want to support the channel any further, which you do not have to, you always could become a channel member and join the legends that you see on screen. Each of you are absolute legends for supporting me, and I truly cannot thank you enough. But like I said, that's about it for today, and take care. Okay,